Hello, welcome to my channel and thank you for being here. Today I'll discuss another three images which continue on the theme of land and forced removals, and um, hopefully this should be the last of such images for a while, but as I've said previously, it is quite an extensive issue, what with South Africa having forcibly removed over 3 million people in its bad, dark apartheid days to accommodate um, its spatial social engineering to accommodate the white ownership of the land that had taken place back then. And that pattern still largely exists. So the first image that you've seen and that you're looking at again now, the caption reads, "The community of Cornfields, which was under threat of forced removals, most of the community successfully resisted removals." Estcourt, KwaZulu-Natal, 1988. Cornfields was a community that I worked in quite extensively. I made repeated trips there, largely with the Association for Rural Advancement, who were assisting this community to resist removals. The history of Cornfields is that it was bought by a number of black families prior to the 1913 Land Act. So I think it was bought around about 1911 and 1912, just before that act came into existence and forbade black people from being able to buy land in large parts of the country that were now settled by white, that were now part of the white colony, and these lands came to be known as black spots, colloquially, in that they were these spots where black people had bought the land and occupied it, and so Cornfields was once the name of a white-owned farm and was a name that was retained by the black owners. And it became quite a favorite, one of my favorite places to visit and work in. And I have fairly extensive documentation of this region. In fact, recently, well, not so recently now, already 10 years ago, it seems, I produced an exhibition in which I returned to Cornfields to produce an exhibition which I called 1913, which commemorated the 1913 Land Act, a century after it came into existence, and I chose to look at two communities, largely because of just the lack of resources to do much further work. One being Cornfields, and then the other being also in KwaZulu-Natal, not that far away, closer to Weenen, a place called Gongola, which where people had successfully returned to land that they had been dispossessed of through the Lands Claims Commission. And so I worked there in the past when they were resisting removals, and that's when this image was made of this rather distinguished gentleman who would have been a descendant of it's his parents that would have bought this farm. And I'd like to think that this image captures, the dignity that land ownership brings to people when they have the security of tenure on property, and and are able to build a life based on that. I like also the playfulness of these children in the confidence and playfulness of these kids in the background, uh, insisting on being in the picture as they should be. Um, so yes, this image is one that brings a certain amount of joy to me. Um, when I revisited the land, which was in 2012 actually, for in preparation for the 2013 exhibition, which showed at the Sophiatown Museum, um, unfortunately, it wasn't a very happy picture that I encountered. In that the Cornfields residents felt very neglected by the current state, and that especially their agricultural efforts were not getting much support from the state, and yeah, conditions in the area had somewhat deteriorated. So that was a bit unfortunate in the sense that one would have hoped that after having fought for so long, that post 94, people would have found a much more advantageous circumstances of living on the land. But that wasn't the case. It seems that the state is far more interested in large commercial farms rather than um, these kind of instances. So I'll move on to the second image, just because of time, which reads, the caption reads, an elder of the forcibly removed community of Mokgopa visits the grave of an ancestor in the burial ground, Northwest Province, 1989. And um, my last episode, session, I included an image of Mokgopa, also of some elders and the ruins of their land. And this image is, of course, of a burial ground and an African elder in paying respect at the grave of his elders. And he was visiting at this point, and in a prelude to the land being successfully, their claim being to return being successfully won. Um, so yeah, just shows this land had indeed been there. There's quite an extensive cemetery with the elders, with the deceased in it. So I will, Mokgopa was of course another such black spot that where people had lost the fight against forced removals, and been removed, and then had subsequent success and were able to return. But that process was hugely disruptive, of course, as you can imagine. The third image, the caption reads, community forcibly removed to make way for a game reserve, Ingwavuma, KwaZulu-Natal, 1987. And that game reserve that the community were removed in this, you see a kid here in a family, his family's yard, so to speak, playing quite a traditional game. And this was a very remote, we had to travel through, treks for quite some time to reach this family. So the removal had place them in quite a remote and one would say rugged conditions. And the park that they were removed for was the um Tembe Elephant Park in Gwavuma, a sanctuary for elephants. It's a very necessary sanctuary, but there have to be better ways in which people are moved for to make way for such um, such parks. And back in the 80s, a lot of those parks had rather nefarious reasons for being, and that they were more likely to be for security reasons in that there seemed to be this tendency to create an arc along borders, especially borders that were posing a security risk in the sense that Mozambique at the time, was a socialist state with a war raging, supported by South Africa. So a lot of antagonism, and also a border with and close to Swaziland as well, where insurgents, South African insurgents, Umkhonto we Sizwe insurgents were coming through those borders to wage their war of liberation in South Africa. So a rather um, beautiful and tender moment of again an image that gets quite a bit of positive reaction from people, because we've if you're looking at this at whatever age you are, you've probably passed this rite of passage of childhood, and and childhoods should be nurtured and protected in every way and supported. And I'd like to think that our country is going from strength to strength in doing so, even notwithstanding all the issues that we face of, for instance, 1 in 4 South Africans going hungry. Placing people in remote places like this doesn't help with, trying to overcome the problems of food security and the like. So I will end it here and say thank you for watching. And more information on myself and my work can be found on my website, a link to which, including my blog and email address, can be found in the video description below. If you like this talk, remember to click the like button and press subscribe. It helps the channel grow.